hate speech proposed legislation. And there's a carve-out, an exception, funnily enough, for the greatest hate crime of all. What could that possibly be? Well, let's have a think. What is the biggest crime that human beings can commit? And why would one have a hate crime bill where one criminalised words and symbols which upset somebody's feelings, but excluded those advocating for the biggest crime of all? Why would that be? Now, we'll get to this shortly. Suffice to say that we stand with the JCA, the Jewish Council of Australia, on this issue, who've come out with a statement. That is the non-Zionist advocacy group, the peaceful advocates, the peace advocates. They came out and said Jewish safety is inseparable from the safety of Muslims, Palestinians, migrants and everybody targeted by racism. If anti-Semitism is treated as justification for suppressing protest, Jewish people will not be safer. Now, the Libs and the Greens have already come out and basically said they're not going to support Labor's bill, that is the hate speech laws. This is what they call an omnibus bill, trying to shove through the gun reforms and the hate speech laws, the vilification laws, in one omnibus bill. That's why they call it omnibus, and that's why we are calling it a monumental omnibus crash. But first, on the subject of actual hate speech itself, the Adelaide Festival. What a debacle. A disaster par excellence, which the fossil media, when news goes to die, is now blaming not the whole episode on themselves for cratering, for barracking for a foreign interest lobby against a Palestinian Australian writer. But wait for it, they're blaming the whole thing on woke elite leftists. Woke elite leftists drive their beloved Writers' Festival into a death spiral, wrote one of the chipmunks from News Corp this week. That's where the blame resides, according to...
Let's go to research and administration.
It was the woke what done it, the ubiquitous woke. The problem, everything in the world is wokeness, not the fact. The pressure from the Zionist lobby on Peter Malinauskas, the Premier of South Australia, had led to pressure on the Adelaide Festival Board, which presides over the Writers' Week, which was compounded by pressure from the Murdoch genocide chipmunks, which led to the festival board junking their invitation to Randa Abdel Fattah, the Palestinian author. And that led, in turn, to 140 to 180 guest writers and hosts boycotting the festival from around the world and from interstate, which led to a board exodus, which led to a board without a quorum, bereft of its powers legally, mixed, which led to the collapse of the Adelaide Writers' Week, which led to a lot of hate speech all round, a blame fest, which led to the fossil media, Rupert's Mob and Nine, etc., doubling down and blaming the Palestinian Randa Abdel Fattah and the director of Adelaide Writers' Week, Louise Adler. And woke lefties, of course. Yes, they blamed everybody but themselves, because it was them what done it, just not even in contention. The lies are spectacular. Now, we're not holding a torch for Louise Adler. We greatly respect her being a leader in the Jewish community who stood up against the atrocities of Israel. She has been very good. We think she's done a fantastic job in standing up for free speech. But of course, she's under massive attack. They are blaming it on her. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? This blame fest. It's amazing Hamas didn't actually get the blame. Really? Two of our favourites in the social media mix, and this stuff would be scooped up by the hate speech laws if they were properly constructed. This was one from this perennial Israel lobby complainer, Menachem Vorchheimer, who said on Twitter this week, on X, memo to Adelaide Writers' Week. The Nazis were cultured. They loved literature, music, philosophy, and still built death camps and murdered 6 million Jews. Thanks, Menachem. The imputation being that Adelaide Writers' Week crew are Nazis. That's where we've got to in this debate. And this was our personal favourite of all time. Julie Seago, who's a journalist, who tweeted, "The writers pulling out of Adelaide Writers' Week are doing so because they are in support of the undeniable October 7 gang rape of hundreds of Jews, including children, by Hamas terrorists." See what Julie's done here? She's amplified an already discredited lie, which got us all in this situation in the first place, October 7. There's no forensic evidence. No woman has come forward. There were no gang rapes. If there were, there's no evidence for them. And now she's expanded it to gang rapes of children by Hamas. It's got into absolutely absurd territory. It's a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, a horrible fairy tale. Generic gang rape narrative being expanded now to include children
home at the water treatment elevator.
from what we're told, were busy being beheaded, all 40 of them at the time. Now, it's no wonder people are getting onto this finally after 2.5 years. It's no wonder. The lies are epic and daily. Anyway, by Thursday this week, despite their desperate attempts to blame peaceful activists or, adherents of the Adelaide Writers' Week, the Adelaide Writers' Week people, for blowing up their own festival, the new festival board apologised to Randa and Louise Adler and said it would be back next year. They rescued it with some apologies. But the foaming at the mouth and the gnashing of the teeth from Sky News Australia and Rupert's mob at this monumental culture war defeat at the hands of goat's cheese-eating leftists was unbearable. They went into
goat's cheese is tasty.
And so they spewed their next narrative that a former director of the festival board, Tony Berg, who had resigned a few months ago at loggerheads with Louise Adler, he emerged to confirm rumours that an Israel supporter too had been censored from the Writers' Week. Hypocrisy, cried Rupert's mob. Yes, and the Herald was and AFR were particularly heinous as well. Yes, let's get to the bottom of this quickly. Yes, as it transpires, it appears to have been the case. Thomas Friedman, a New York columnist, had been previously disinvited from Adelaide Writers' Week. The official line through a leaked email was that he had scheduling conflicts, so that's what his official position was. But yes, it looks like he did allow himself to be disengaged in the aftermath of a column he wrote called Animal Kingdom. Thomas Friedman, Animal Kingdom, look it up, in which he portrayed the US as the aging lion, Israel as the cute and cuddly Sifaka Timor.
Hello.
Whatever that is, I've never heard of it, but it's a cuddly little friendly animal. And he portrayed Arabs and Muslims as wasps and assorted toxic insects, such as the trapdoor spider. Bear in mind, this was in the wake of the Israeli leadership branding all people in Gaza, the lot of them, as human animals, as they were literally exterminating them. That's hate speech for you. That is hate speech. Now, we're virtually free speech absolutists here at Michael West Media because we think that free speech corrects itself, and when people are saying absurd and hateful things, they will get lambasted in the public arena. So we don't believe that hate speech should be much of a thing. It certainly should not be criminalised. And yes, if you're a free speech absolutist, you have to admit that there is censorship here of Thomas Friedman and of Randa Abdel Fattah, who complained that Thomas Friedman was going to be in attendance. So yes, hypocrisy. But let's look at this. Let's look at the perspective. One, Randa espouses the rights of an oppressed people, the Palestinians, she is a Palestinian, against a genocidal regime, versus, on the other side, a genocide apologist slandering an entire race of people as venomous insects, all of which brings us to the hate speech laws, the omnibus crash. The title of this proposed legislation says it all. Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026. Now, the first thing to notice about the hate speech bill is its name. Anti-Semitism coming first in the title. Not racism, but a special form of racism comes first. Anti-Semitism. That is the first thing that they want to outlaw. That comes first. This in itself speaks to the Zionist supremacy issue. Why is all this racism not equal? Why are some people not equal to others in this? Why can we not deem all races as equal and treat all race and religious bigotry equally? It's all bad. Such is the case too with the death. It's all bad. You don't have to really pick a side. You can just say, logically, we don't support violence of any kind, except perhaps in self-defence. But what the new proposed hate speech laws do is to criminalise hate speech. You can be packed off to jail for what somebody else deems to be hate speech. Now, overall, the problem is that the government here is seeking to lower the threshold on racial vilification from speech which incites actual violence to speech which promotes hate. This is a radical change. It's extremely subjective. One person's hate is another person's love. One person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. Now, we know that the forces driving these laws are the Israel lobby in Australia. And we know that they espouse the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. That is, and we know that Albo has said that he's going to adhere to that. We know that they want to outlaw criticism of Israel and the actions of Israel. They want the word genocide. That's the key word here. We didn't put it high in the video because YouTube censors you if you use certain words. They want that word gone from the public debate. They want to outlaw criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu. And we know that this lobby group finds criticism of Israel as hateful. That's their view. Therefore, it will want people critical of Israel silenced, packed off to jail. And so it is that there is a carve-out, an exception in the bill. To quote the lawyer Michael Bradley from Mark Lawyers this week, who wrote in Crikey of some of the many terrible problems with this legislation, we'll just quote him here. The third exception is the section 80.2D offence of advocating genocide. Yes, advocating genocide is not, under this new law, a hate crime. Now, I think we all know that genocide is the most race-adjacent crime of all crimes. So why has it been excluded? Hate crime conduct, while violent and offensive, generally falls short of terrorism and is distinct from genocide. As such, advocating terrorism and advocating genocide should not be captured in this framework and are best criminalised through existing frameworks within the criminal code. Cool story, says Bradley, but also bullshit. Let's be clear, he says. All of the acts in the definition of hate crime are already crimes within the criminal code. The point of the new hate crime concept is that the thing that defines a hate group. These groups are caught by the regime because they promote such crimes. The argument put up for excluding advocating genocide from the list is nonsensical. It is the mother of all hate crimes. And so we know that the official explanation is rubbish. What then is the real reason for making the advocacy of genocide not part of the definition of who is or who is not a proscribed hate group? Israel and several of its government's leaders are under indictment for genocide. Pro-Israel lobby groups have spent the past 3 years monstering anyone who dares whisper that the country might be perpetrating a genocide, while staunchly defending every genocidal step that the Israeli state takes. It would perhaps be in their interest to not risk being labelled a hate group on the basis of advocating genocide. The whole thing is about control, not protecting people from hate speech. And those are our words. It's about control. It's about chilling speech. They can't prosecute everybody for hate speech. It's rapid. It's every day. But they go out and prosecute a few people and chuck them in jail, and that chills hate speech. Now, it's just a sneaking suspicion here, but seeing they just gave the public who appointed them who elected them to office 2 days to respond to this ridiculous legislation. It looks like Albo might have been, he's pretty crafty, the old Albo. He might have just chucked it out there like let's have a quick public marketplace referendum on this. Because left and right have come together as one. The Libs, the Greens, the far right, the far left, everybody except the soft centre who just don't want to know about it. It's all too much. It looks like he might have put it up to get it torpedoed, to put this debate into the public arena, because we'll be hearing a lot about this debate all year because we've got the Royal Commission coming. So we'll be hearing a lot about anti-Semitism, and we personally think it's all going to backfire on the Israel lobby because people are now onto it. They don't like genocide. They don't like babies being amputated. It's perhaps political manoeuvring because when you look at the actual legislation, it's pretty bizarre. The carve-outs for religious passages will be hugely contentious, as was ScoMo's religious efforts to get a religious bill through a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. That really got him stuck in Parliament. It's expended a lot of his political capital. Everybody will have something to say about this. It's a rush job, but perhaps it is a designed rush job. It's a rush job by design because it's an absolute assault on freedom of political communication. And as eloquently analysed by our correspondent Andrew Brown, who says, you can check the story on the website. We'd also like you to check, if you want to go into it a bit further, Kelly Tranter's stuff. She's a lawyer, human rights lawyer. She's done a good job analysing it. We'll put the link in the description. But Brown says the Act expands criminal vilification to include national origin. Israel is a nation state. That alone pulls political criticism into criminal territory. Zionism is treated in public discourse as inseparable from Jewish identity, whether critics accept that framing or not. The law does not care what you mean. It cares how a hypothetical, reasonable person might feel. This brings us to the reasonable person test. Who is a reasonable person? Everybody will have a different opinion on that. What is a reasonable person? The Act is explicit. It does not matter whether anyone was intimidated.
Not any Muslims.
It does not matter whether harm actually occurred. If a reasonable person could feel fear or intimidation, the threshold for prosecution is met. This is not a law anchored in harm. It is a law anchored in vibes, says Brown. And as the Jewish Council said, it will only lead to more anti-Semitism. That is just beyond doubt. Now, you can blame Harbour Bridge marchers, Albo, you can blame everybody but the actual Bondi killers for what happened in Bondi, for that atrocity. This blame fest will not stop while the Anti-Semitism Royal Commission is going, but perhaps more people will come to understand the true picture here. The well-being of Jews, Muslims and Christians is inseparable, as the Jewish Council of Australia says. The Jewish Council of Australia, unfortunately, doesn't get much play in the mainstream media, who continually run the radical Zionist line. Instead, treating us as one community, the bill itself is discriminatory, favouring some people over others. Now, we haven't gone into the forensics of it here because it's going to have to change because it won't get through because the Greens and the Libs are opposing it. So what we're going to do is, when we get those amendments, we'll go through it then with you. But suffice to say that if you check, this thing is going to run for a long time. It will drown out all other issues in Australia, and I guess that's the way that they wanted it. In any case, check out our latest story by Stephanie Tran on ScoMo's, who, our former Prime Minister ScoMo, is one of the headline speakers at an anti-Semitism conference in Israel in a few days' time. Now, this is hugely paradoxical because, of course, ScoMo, who's now a weapons lobbyist, and we don't know whether he's appointed himself as to a number of speaking positions in this, but the crew that have been invited are really fundamentalist, radical, extreme, right-wing people from Europe and so on. ScoMo, seriously, is part of the problem, and whether we should be funding his prime ministerial entitlements as a supporter of Israel's actions should be debated in public. We should not be funding ScoMo, going to extremist conferences in Israel while there is a genocide going on in Gaza and the West Bank. Thank you for your support. We thank our sponsors Island Optical and Optical Superstores, and we particularly thank our Patreon supporters for, it's been a big week. We've done over 1 million across the channels, well over 1 million in audience over the past while everybody's been on holidays, and so there'll be a lot more this year. It's going to be a monumental year, and we'll get back on the hate speech stuff next week because they're recalling Parliament early to discuss this. It is going to be one heck of a show. Don't you worry about that. Check out all our coverage, Adelaide Writers Festival, ScoMo, and lots of other stuff. We're going to do some good Australia Day stuff today. Australia Day's been a little bit drowned out by all this, hasn't it? Perhaps we should just call it Israeli a Day and be done with it. Anyway, thanks for your support. Please like, share, and comment in the section below. When are we learn the prohibition? When are we going to learn that prohibition does not work? You call your mate a bastard, you old bastard, or a cow, and it's affectionate. It's a nice thing to say, you bastard.
Cool.
But if you call an Indigenous person or an Israeli or a Muslim or somebody you don't like, a bastard, that is hate speech. It's all about context. And, are they going to legislate for satire today? We're talking here about the bill they're trying to rush through Parliament at the moment, the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate Speech and Extremism and Gun Reform Bills. They split the gun bits out. How many words do you have to ban? And will it have any effect anyway? No, it won't. Do we ban the word bastard? Apparently, we're banning the words globalise the intifada, but nobody says that anyway. It's a furphy. And if we ban that, people would just say adjacent terms. They're trying to legislate for adjacent terms as well, as if the proposed ban on adjacent terms, it's going to be a lawyer's picnic. Your Honour, he really meant bastard. Your Honour, from the river to the sea, it is ridiculous, the whole thing. This should not even be happening. Now, if you check our copy by Nick Reimer on the website, Nick's an academic and an academic linguistics expert. That's what he does, language. He's also being dragged through the courts by the Zionist lobby. They're trying to take his home for language, for some tweets. You can't fix this hate speech thing, and hate is running rampant at the moment for a number of reasons, which we won't go into today. But what is hate speech? One person's hate speech is another person's harmless, joking fun. It's all about context. If you read Nick, he makes some really good points about the words that they're trying to ban and the fact that it's all context. Now, the reason that we're here anyway is the Zionists wanting to ban criticism of Israel. They want the word genocide out, as if the mainstream media hasn't already done their bidding, because if you read The Guardian, The Herald, The Australian, any of the Murdoch rags, the 9 rags, they don't use the word genocide because they're not allowed to. There's already a huge chilling effect going on. Now they want to control and monitor independent media and the internet as well. A lawyer's picnic. So it will be headed, legislation-wise, for the High Court. Doesn't matter what. They're trying to shove it through today, and they're bound to alienate many, many people.
So just to advise the House in terms of speeches, I've got a procedure that I'm hoping to not move, that basically we deal with all remaining amendments without debate. If we can get through this relatively quickly, then we'll be able to make sure that everybody gets to present their amendments properly. But I'm just sort of flagging, if people can be conscious of the time, that'd be great.
People don't want their basic human rights taken away. the right to protest, the right to assemble freely in a group, the right to have your say, the right to free speech. Now, the way the bill is working, there's debate in the reps in the lower house at the moment in Canberra, and there'll be debate in the Senate kicking off about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and that's where the action will be, because the government has 90 seats in the lower house, 94 seats. They've got a majority. They can get it through there. They don't need the Liberals or the Greens. And the latest out of the news cycle is that there might be a deal between the Libs and Labor to get the hate speech bill through. They're under a lot of pressure to do this from the usual quarters. The Greens have been talking with them, of course, but they've all got different agendas according to who they hate or who they love, whose speech they want to put on. The Adelaide Festival, that day Barker's taught us anything, with the Murdoch push for censorship of a Palestinian voice. Successfully, they destroyed the Adelaide Writers' Festival. I mean, the hate speech is epic at the moment. So it's got to get through the upper house, this bill. Broadly, the Libs want a deal, but they don't want to leak votes to Pauline Hanson, who's already out polling them. Pauline actually overtook them on the polls, so now she thinks she's basically Prime Minister.
Susan Lee, if you're doing deals with the Labor Party over this hate speech bill, you are pathetic. You're a loser, because I'll tell you what, you're only band-aiding what could actually impact
take that if you have any space.
Freedom of expression in this country. So you just vote it down. You do not deal with the Labor Party or the Greens on this bill. That is absolutely a dog's breakfast, and it should not even be considered.
So, the Libs don't want to offend the Nazis and the alt-right. They don't want to leak more votes to Pauline. A deal with the Greens is possible, but they don't want to offend the many Australians who find genocide offensive, like yours truly, because the draft legislation is structured in such a way so that that group advocating for genocide, the Israel lobby, are not deemed to be a hate group. This is why we are here in the first place. They want to muzzle criticism of Israel. They want it shut down. Ergo, the Adelaide Writers' Week. Ergo, Kathy Wilcox's fantastic cartoon being deemed anti-Semitic, and the Herald and Age backing down and apologising for it. A very good cartoon. Now, this cartoon by Alan Moyer, the former Herald cartoonist, an old colleague, says it all. We don't want to offend the hate vote, because everybody hates somebody, or not everybody. You'd have to be pretty Buddhist right now not to, or very Christian in the New Testament sense. The hate vote. It's vaudeville, the whole thing. Pauline Hanson, who said the other day that she was ready to form government on a few polls. Don't worry about the fact she's got no seats in the lower house. She wants to form government now, Pauline. She reckons, while she was rabbiting on about the ISIS brides, oh, she hates the ISIS brides. It's Hollywood, isn't it? The ISIS brides. It's got that nasty, insidious sound to it. She wants this legislation. She says, vote it down. It's a dog's breakfast. Jacinta Price, the coalition very outspoken representative and close to Gina friend, she's gone apoplectic at the suggestion that all forms of racism might be embraced in this legislation. No, not on your Nelly, because all forms, that's not the point of this. The point of it is to shut down criticism of Israel, to do what the Zionists want. Snapping to Sky News, her cherished favourite channel, Sky News After Dark. Today is not a day for Indigenous hatred. Don't you worry about those Indigenous people. Let's just get what the Zionists want into law. Her version of The Voice is the voice for Israel. Susan Lee set the tone last night. Susan's just all over the shop. She posted a ridiculous video blaming peace protesters again for the actions of the ISIS gunmen in Bondi.
You warned of this menacing storm. It took over our landmarks. It camped in university quadrangles. It sent children to school behind locked gates and armed guards. You warned of this menacing storm, and you said you felt unheard.
And David Shoebridge of the Greens, the senator, is rightly up in arms about procedural fairness in the bill. That is, the scope for the government, for the executive branch of government, to decide what they reckon is a hate group. Oh, we'll just decide we hate these people, so we're going to criminalise them arbitrarily and put them in jail for saying things that we hate. The way the bill deals with religion is hugely problematic too. Because it's protected by the Constitution.
Oh God, I
Section
don't wanna do this.
116 of the Australian Constitution states that the Commonwealth Government shall not make any law that prohibits the free exercise of any religion. High Court challenges, here we come. So the right wants their right to hate Muslims. The
Gonna
left
suck.
want their right to hate Nazis. The Zionists want their right to hate those that hate Israel, while they advocate to exterminate Gazans. Trump's Board of Peace, which Albo is still dithering about. I mean, imagine being on a genocide board, the Board of Peace. He's got to reject that one, seriously. His legacy will be terrible, and he must know that. Ordinary Australians have not seen the latest draft. We haven't seen the latest draft. Where is the public consultation? Did they vote for this? Did we vote for this? Shoving it through in some rushed compromise deal is dangerous, and it will only cause more hate. Meanwhile, as reported by Stephanie Tran, the government has given Palantir, the evil Palantir surveillance company, the very company run by a Zionist cokehead.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
They've given Palantir, as we broke the story last night on the website, check it out, it's really super important. They've given Palantir high-level clearance in this country to operate. That is, the company intimately involved in IDF mass murder of Palestinians and Trump's ICE crackdown on his own people. And the visa policing too. You know, when you try to get into the US now, they can look at 10 years of your emails and 5 years of your social media. You've got to stump up all your handles and your history. The aim is a full surveillance state. That's what Palantir wants. And we're saying, come on in, Palantir. No matter that Switzerland chucked them out, they described the potential for having Palantir operate in Switzerland as devastating. This is the Swiss, who are always very eminently sensible tax avoiders. Devastating consequences, warned the Swiss. But here we are, warm and loving arms, come in, Palantir. I mean, who did the lobbying? Who paid the political donations here, for goodness sake? This is a blatant breach of international law dealing with these people. Suffice to say that the concerns of ordinary Australians, housing, healthcare, cost of living and so on, will be shoved to the side all year, as today, amid the rising nanny state, surveillance state and endless debate in Parliament about anti-Semitism, hate speech, culture war stuff. Hate is at epic levels, fuelled by the rise of the platforms, fuelled by overseas conflicts and lobby groups in Australia, and legislating will not fix it. There are already laws in place, vilification laws, where you cannot incite violence. Now, it's just about speech. They can send you to jail for 5 years and up to 10 or 12 in some cases if you're preaching religious hate. For hate speech, they can send you to jail. That's what they're planning to do, criminalise speech. And as we know, read the Nick Reimer piece on the website. One person's hate speech is another person's jocular communication.
Go to that location.
So we thank our sponsors,
Watch your
Island
backs,
Optical and
Raiders.
Optical
The
Superstores.
matriarch
We
has been
thank our
spotted near your
Patreon
location.
supporters for
Keep your wits
enabling
about
us
you
to
if you decide to go
survive, to
anywhere
exist.
near. And always
And we
keep a
thank
close
Oh my God,
eye on
shut the
your
fuck
children.
up.
Like, share and comment in the section below. And when we have some detail on the actual terms of the new laws, on what they've brought in, we will report back in more forensic detail then.
Yes, suffice it to say, if anybody's confused about all that, we're about to outlaw protest against Israel in this country. Pretty cool.
I'm Ali Abu Ni'mah here with my colleague Nora Barrows-Friedman. In cities across Iran in recent days, millions of people have marched in support of their government and to protest violence that foreign intelligence agencies have been instigating in the latest Western push for regime change. Israel's Mossad spying and assassination agency has actually been boasting publicly about its role. On Wednesday, enormous crowds turned out again in the capital, Tehran, for a mass funeral of some 100 police and security officers killed in attacks by foreign-backed insurgents. Western media and politicians paint a totally opposite picture, portraying a regime in crisis, wantonly killing its own people to crush a mass uprising seeking its overthrow. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has been escalating his threats of renewed U.S. military attacks on Iran, raising the risk of another U.S.-Israeli instigated regional war. And while Western governments pretend to be concerned for Iran's people, they continue to aid and abet Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza. On Wednesday evening, President Trump appeared to turn down the temperature slightly, asserting that Iran had halted its deadly crackdown, thus potentially giving himself a way out of the escalation that he has caused. We've been told, Trump said, that the killing in Iran is stopping and there's no plan for executions. We're going to watch and see, he added. In an interview recorded on Wednesday evening, Tehran time, hours before Trump's apparently de-escalatory statements, our guest Mohammed Marandi said that there is a good chance of war. Let's go to that interview. We're joined now from Tehran by Dr. Mohammed Marandi. He's a professor of comparative literature at the University of Tehran and a renowned geopolitical analyst. Thank you for joining us again on the Electronic Intifada live stream.
Oh my god, I have a thing on me.
Thank you
no
very
wonder.
much for having me. It's always an honor.
So we're recording this interview on Wednesday evening, Tehran time. And I want to start by reading you the opening paragraphs of a story that appeared in the New York Times on Tuesday. The headline is, "Shoot to Kill, Accounts of Brutal Crackdown Emerge from Iran." And the subheadline is, "As many as 3,000 feared dead as witnesses describe government forces firing on unarmed protesters." Here's how that story begins. As the Iranian authorities impose a near-total communication blackout on a country convulsed by mass protests, videos and witness accounts slowly emerging suggest that the government is waging one of its deadliest crackdowns.
I hate this game.
Eyewitnesses say government forces have begun opening fire, apparently with automatic weapons, and at times seemingly indiscriminately on unarmed protesters. Hospital workers say protesters have been coming in with pellet injuries, but now arrive with gunshot wounds and skull fractures. One doctor called it a mass casualty situation. Despite the communications blockade, a recurring image has made its way out of Iran: rows and rows of body bags. In videos uploaded by opposition activists on social media, families can be seen sobbing as they huddle together over bloodied corpses in unzipped bags. And in footage aired on Iranian state television, a morgue official, sheathed in blue scrubs, stands amid bags neatly arranged on the floor of a white room under glaring fluorescent lights. And I'm skipping a bit now, but just a few more sentences from this New York Times article. They say, "The toll of dead and injured across the country is unclear. Human rights groups are struggling to reach their contacts inside Iran and follow the methodology they normally use to verify information, but say they have counted more than 500 deaths. Multiple American officials say that U.S. intelligence agencies have conservatively estimated that more than 600 protesters have been killed so far. The agencies have noted that both the current protests and the crackdown are far more violent than those in 2022 or other recent uprisings against the government." A senior Iranian health ministry official speaking on condition of anonymity said about 3,000 people had been killed across the country, but sought to shift the blame to quote-unquote terrorists fomenting unrest. The figure included hundreds of security officers, he said. So, Dr. Marandi, that's an excerpt from the New York Times, but it is typical of coverage across Western media. And now we're even seeing claims from CBS, the American news network run by Israel propagandist Barry Weiss, that the death toll may be higher than 12,000. We're also seeing countless statements from Western governments condemning Iran in the strongest terms and threatening even more sanctions. This is the picture that is being uniformly presented of the situation in Iran as the media talk about possible U.S. military intervention. What's your response to all this, and how do you see the situation in and from Tehran?
Well, did the New York Times add anything about the rapes on October the 7th? I mean, I think that could have been a part of this article. It's about as credible as their claims back then. The New York Times, first of all, or Reuters in particular, because Reuters began this whole thing about anonymous Iranian officials gave these numbers of deaths. Reuters has a history of lying. Whenever they have unnamed officials, they're lying. And I have personal experience because during the nuclear negotiations, Reuters was constantly quoting officials and saying things that were not true because I knew they were not true, because I was involved. I was the media advisor to the team. What I can say, Ali, is that I was on Piers Morgan yesterday, and it was a very bizarre show, and I only went because George Galloway said you should go, so I went. And but on the show, I put footage. I gave them footage to show. I said I want you to show this footage, and it was helicopter footage of Monday's mass rallies in support of the state, in support of the Constitution, in support of the leader, and against the riots. And it was across the country. Every city had its own. And the one in Tehran was massive. And Pierce brought this crazy woman who threatened to kill me and cut my body into small pieces. Anyway, he brought her, and she was saying, this is fake. And Piers Morgan wanted to say this is fake. So this is AI, and all these millions of people on the streets across the country in Iran, they're AI. And so, but even though
now you attended or you witnessed those rallies on Monday yourself in Tehran?
Yes, I was there. In fact, I entered, for those who may know a thing or two about Tehran, or they could use AI. I entered from Hafiz Street, and I went to the Vali As crossing, and I couldn't go further because I was stuck, and I got worried that it was just too big of a crowd, and it went all the way to Imam Hussein Square, and my relatives near Azadi Square said the crowd went there, and a couple of friends of mine from I know you don't know these names, but from Engelab Square south to Imam Khomeini Square, he was on that route, and it was full. So the east-west street, I guess, is 10 kilometers because it has bridges and undergrounds. So, and then the north-south, I don't know how many kilometers it is, full of people. And when I was leaving, people were when it was over, people were still trying to get there because they were stuck in traffic. It took hours to get there and to get back. And imagine all those people who are like working class people who have difficulty, making money. And then they went and sacrificed a half a day of their life to make a political statement. And then, what's his name? Musk or,
Elon Musk.
These pundits in the United States. Yeah. Elon Musk or these pundits in the United States just negate, or Piers Morgan, they just negate it. So if, people on the streets, but then the protests or the riots, they're mass movement. But the huge crowds, and Piers Morgan was telling me that there are no reporters there. Just because you're not there doesn't make it a fact that no reporters are there. Al Jazeera English was there. Al Mayadeen was there. Al Jazeera Arabic was there. CCTV was there. CGTN was there. RT was there. Anatolia or whatever it is from Turkey, they were there. They were reporters there. But the thing is, you have to, someone from CNN, I guess, has to be there in order for it to be verified. And the whole thing was rolling coverage the whole day, city after city after city. It was clear as day. But the Americans, do not want to confront reality. If the Iranians wanted to, why would the Iranians want to gun down peaceful protesters? They have all
Language.
these supporters. All they
Menu
can do,
narration.
all they have to do is call them to the
English
streets,
only.
and these people
No.
would have
Cycle
run
with
away.
left or right.
The first day,
Press back to
what
return.
happened, Ali? Let me put it
Press
this way.
next to continue.
The first day, we had a sudden fall in the currency, and that was because the Americans were manipulating the markets from abroad in neighboring countries. And that's why people think that this was all a part of the plan. After the currency fell, shop owners and business people, like a few thousand, a couple, here and there, in different cities, combined a few thousand, went to the streets and protested to the central bank. For good reason, because they were saying, we sell our goods and then the goods that we have to buy with the profit are now more expensive and we can't do it and we'll go bankrupt. There were no arrests. There was no police brutality like you see in Germany when someone is wearing a keffiyeh. There were no policemen battering people or taking them to jail because they had a placard like an 80-year-old Jewish woman in London saying no to genocide, and she has to go to jail. Nothing happened. And then I think basically from day 3-ish, I'm not good at days, but my memory has never been very good. But on day 3, these rioters came in. Now Pompeo, the former head of the CIA, said that in his tweet that Mossad is on the ground.
Just to
Fucking loud.
to give people exactly what that was. This was on January 2nd. Former U.S. Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo tweeted, quote, "Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets, also to every Mossad agent walking beside them." So that's what you're...
By the way, this is all I mean, the authoritarian regimes that the West calls, all the authoritarian regimes that have no elections are U.S. allies. But Iran, which has elections, which has, one day they're saying this is a reformist president, the next day the other. So there's
Right.
diversity in Iran. But Iran is evil and sinister because it opposes the genocide. So Pompeo says that the Mossad is there. The Mossad says that they are there because they put out a Persian language statement. And I think the Jerusalem Post also said something about this, saying that they are on the ground. And then I think just yesterday, Channel 14
my
of
God.
Israel, Israeli regime, said that foreign countries are getting weapons. Now, they are saying it, and then Western pundits are saying, no, they're all peaceful protesters. So the guilty party is saying, I did it, and then their entourage is saying, no, they're not doing it. It's all peaceful protests. In fact, I read this person, I don't want to name him, he did a tweet and was saying what Channel 14 of Israel, when they admitted that foreign governments were sending in weapons, what Channel 14 is doing is it's undermining the sort of peaceful protest narrative. Well, yeah, of course, because it wasn't, there were peaceful protests and nothing happened to them. Then the rioters came in. And then, Ali, we had 100 officers of the law roughly
Press
who were
space
murdered.
to start.
300 to
Press escape to
400
quit.
with the Basij,
Language.
with the riot police,
Menu narration.
and
English only.
with the guards, let's say, all of them.
Cycle with left or right.
300 or so. Some
Press
say up to
back to
400,
return.
some say no, it's closer to
Press
300.
next to continue.
Let's stick to 300. Today, 100 people, they had a mass funeral in Tehran. These were martyrs. In the United
Cool.
States, a woman is driving her car. She's turning to the right. She gets shot in the face. And then the argument is, and the debate over in the United States is, whether she turned enough to the right to make the shot in the face unacceptable, or whether she didn't turn enough to the right and she deserved to get shot in the face. So when this is the debate in the United States and the U.S. president is supporting the ICE officer who murdered her and shot her 3 times, then the United States and the elites in the United States are in no position to talk about rioters who killed 300 to 400, but let's say 300 officers of the law, Basij, riot police, and guards. That's a fact. In the United States, if they kill one police officer, what happens? They killed hundreds, and then they call this peaceful protest. And if they were killing people, why didn't they kill the peaceful protesters on day 1 and 2? And the whole time, a TV channel called Iran International, and also BBC Persian, but Iran International in particular, which is funded by Western intelligence agencies, they were advocating armed violence. And I tweeted a clip of one of their presenters saying this. Is Ofcom in the UK going to do anything about it? Of course not, because that's their policy. So you can kill people in Iran, you can bomb the country, you can send in terrorists, you can openly advocate terrorism, and then the media will deny all of it. Just like with Gaza. Right. No one should be surprised. If anyone is surprised by now that maybe the Western narrative is not correct, then that person has been in a coma for the last couple of years. It's obvious after Gaza, if anyone believes Western narratives, let me put it this way, Ali. 2.3 to 3 million people went to the streets in Tehran on Monday. Whether the West likes it or not, that's a fact. Anyone can go to the live stream of Press TV and watch it. They have hours of it. And then in other cities too. Whatever the numbers, huge numbers of people went to the streets, right? So when you have all this huge crowd going to the street, that means they support the state. That means they support the Constitution. Despite the fact that we have an Persian language media empire in the West. There's nothing like it in the world. Not against China, not against Russia, not against anyone. You have maybe hundreds of TV channels, but a few of them big, beaming in anti-Iranian information, outgunning Iranian media by far. You have all sorts of Telegram channels and Twitter accounts with big followings, and then you have thousands of people who work 24 hours a day, literally in shifts in camps like Albania. They're online foot soldiers, and the bots and all that. 24 hours a day, every day, 365 days a year, anti-Iranian propaganda is being beamed into Iran. So the Iranians hear everything. They hear all the anti-Iranian information, misinformation, twisted truths, lies, and all that. They outgun the Iranian media. So I'm supposed to believe that all these millions of people that went on the streets in Mashhad, in Esfahan, in Tabriz, in Marand, in Shiraz, in Ahvaz, in Kerman, in Zahedan, all these people, they say, they killed thousands of people on the streets and gunned them down, but we're still going to go to the streets and support them? That I think is
Piers Morgan would say, wouldn't he, that Iran is an authoritarian dictatorship and those people are forced out into the streets.
Of course, but the Iranian regime, as they like to call it, the Iranian regime, if it's so competent that in the middle of this mass uprising, it can bring millions of people to the streets, then they're quite competent and they deserve to be in power. But none of this makes sense. The only reason why it makes sense to these pundits in the West and these so-called Iran experts and the media is that it's negative. Anything bad about Iran makes sense, even if it's contradictory. Like when they say Iran is collapsing, it's falling apart, it's despised, it's corrupt. but it's a growing menace. It's a threat to the region. It's a threat to the world. How can it be both things at the same time?
Well, it's the
Why?
classist fascist.
Even though they,
That's the
they
classic
can't,
fascist.
But they believe both because both are bad. They say, oh, it's
Othering.
negative. And here's the case too. Iran can bring millions of people to the streets. Well, it's an authoritarian regime. Well, how come the authoritarian regime cannot control an uprising? None of this makes sense, but it's not supposed to, because it plays on the emotions of ordinary people. The same people who one day were saying we shouldn't get involved in Venezuela, and then the next day they're saying, we're number one. They play upon the emotions of different groups in American society, and they're fooled. So right now, there's a huge, whether it's AOC or Trump, they're all saying the same thing. It's really interesting. Everyone is on the same page. We have to save the Iranian people. Well, if you want to help the Iranian people, the first thing you can do is end the sanctions. When Trump said, I want to increase the tariffs, that's to hurt the Iranian people. So, they want to strangle the Iranian economy, just like they did with Venezuela, just like they did with Cuba, and they do with these countries. And then they say they're the friends of Iran. They're trying to kill Iranians. When you impose sanctions, you get shortages of medicine. Then, because the economy doesn't grow, the currency goes down, the price of medicine goes up, and since people lose jobs, they cannot buy medicine. Or, people lose their jobs, they can't make money, that causes families to break up, or all sorts of harm. The objective is to tear apart the fabric of society, so that people become so desperate that they will rise up in desperation. That is the objective. That's war, and it's targeting ordinary people. So for Westerners in the media, Western media, I don't mean like the young people and those who are supporting the Palestinians and all that, but these people who speak about human rights, they're all the enemies of human rights. Every single one of them. Because what the United States is doing to Iran is trying to make it suffer, and so are the Europeans. The German chancellor said apparently a couple of days ago, I'm in the studio, I'm at Press TV, and I don't have internet at home. When I'm here, I try to catch up with the news. But I don't know exactly what he said, but he apparently said something that like the Iranian regime or something is not legitimate or something like that. He is the guy that when the Israelis started bombing Iran, he said they do our dirty work for us.
And yesterday, I don't know how much you've been following the news. The German Interior Minister went to Israel and met with Netanyahu, a war criminal wanted by the International Criminal Court. So, it's just extraordinary. It's almost laughable, the double standards. Go ahead, Nora.
We talked about Mike Pompeo's comments about every Mossad agent walking beside every Iranian in the street. Mossad, of course, is Israel's notorious spying and assassination agency. And on Tuesday, Donald Trump published a post on his Truth Social website stating, quote, Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, with 3 exclamation points. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. And he added, I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MIGA, make Iran great again. Dr. Morandi, how do you think the Iranian public and government understand those statements? And are there people in Iran who want American military intervention or regime change to, bring democracy to the people of Iran or make Iran great again?
Do you want to be bombed into freedom is the question.
Well, I've never tried it before, so I can't say with certainty if I like being bombed into freedom. I'm speculating that it's probably not a good idea based on what I've heard here and there. But the fact is that
America.
this is another thing that people in the United States have to appreciate. people in Iran see that Mossad is involved. People in Iran know that Pompeo has admitted this. It's in the news here. And does anyone in their right mind in the West think that the popular opinion in Iran supports the Mossad and their involvement in Iran? They support CIA involvement in Iran. They support the threat of strikes and attack against Iran. Yes, of course, there's a small minority that's pro-Western. There's a small minority that's pro-Israel.
Why would you use F instead of E?
You will find people in Iran that support Israel. Racists usually, like these people who hate Arabs. They're a disgusting few.
Yeah, and
I
just
have a
remember
student
that.
who had an argument with me over.
Just remember, to your average Westerner, Iranians are also Arabs. It doesn't matter. There's no distinction.
Over this last semester, and or someone at Press TV actually, has this disgusting view. But overwhelmingly, people despise
Oh, what
this
a
resolution.
weird system.
And the reason why they came to the streets in such extraordinary numbers is because a lot of people who usually don't even go to the streets, they just mind their own business, say, no, here I have to go. I have to take part in this anti-riot, Western interference demonstration. But the belief in Tehran, or at least the belief among many, is that this whole episode was to bring us to war. The Americans manipulated the currency, sparking protests, and these groups that were pre-prepared,
welcome to DC,
infiltrated, and then caused riots and violence, and a lot of people died, including a lot of innocent people who were just going to work or coming home from work. And then the Americans can be pushed to war.
The city's become a
and you see everyone now, as I said, from AOC to Levin, all of them are saying we have to help the Iranian people.
A few civilian settlements are still holding out against all this.
The genocide in Gaza, none of them said that.
They need more help than we've been able to provide, especially since the division network.
I don't care, dude.
By the way, Agent,
That was instantly boring.
And if the United States attacks Iran, they will be hit very hard, and they should not expect Iran to hit American bases or to hit Israel. It will be far broader than that. So Trump should be very careful, because if this is a very sensitive region and a lot of oil and gas go through the Strait of Hormuz, and the Persian Gulf is not very wide, and the oil and gas fields exports from Iraq is most of the MPs in Iraq are close to Iran. If
Dr. Morandi,
the United States attacks, you could see it.
Yeah, allow me to interrupt you. I apologize. I know what you're going to say. I've heard you say it before.
Sure.
That the Strait of Hormuz is very narrow. You don't need big long-range ballistic missiles. We're talking about a distance of dozens of kilometers, maybe hundreds of kilometers at the most, and Iran has thousands of missiles, perhaps. I don't know that I know or you know. The so-called intelligence services of the West issue estimates, not facts. So all of that may be the case. In June, last June, Israel, with the full backing of the United States, launched a massive war on Iran, decapitation strikes, killing many senior military leaders. And Iran fired back missiles. We spoke to you at that time. Now, what I want to say to you is that Iran has carried out now True Promise 1, True Promise 2, True Promise 3. That didn't deter Israel or the United States. They're coming back again. I read, maybe it was in the Washington Post or the New York Times, one of them, can't remember, doesn't really matter, that Iran has only a third of the missile launches that it had in June. So I put it to Dr. Morandi that there's a lot of bluster and hot air. What do you say to that? I'm doing my Piers Morgan impression here for you.
Oh yeah. What I would say is that Iran today is significantly more prepared than it was 7 months ago. And it has learned a lot from the 12-day war. Remember, Iran hadn't fought a war. The Israeli regime and the Americans have been, they're always in war. But Iran had not fought a war since Saddam Hussein, with Western backing, invaded the country decades ago. This was the first time. And so Iran understood its shortcomings and its strengths. And it's been preparing itself ever since. And it's been putting a lot of effort in this. And there's another thing, Ali, that's important. During the 12-day war, Iran focused on the Israeli regime. The Americans struck Iran once. What damage was done? Debatable. If any significant damage was done at all. But I don't want to go there. The Iranians struck back at Doha. 6 missiles struck, destroyed sensitive buildings that belong to the United States in Qatar. But the focus was on Israel. Iran did not want to expand the war. They wanted to put Israel in its place, and ultimately it was the Israelis that sought a ceasefire. Steve Bannon, the day after the war, went and said that the real story here is that Israel was in bad trouble during the last few days, and they needed a ceasefire, and they're begging for a ceasefire, and Trump helped get them one. A war with the United States would be a totally different
Edison Cooper
war.
Dennison.
Iran's real capabilities are not directed toward Israel. Iran's real capabilities are directed towards the Persian Gulf. Why? Because for decades, the United States has been threatening Iran with war. They invaded Afghanistan, and they took Iraq. They were it was a unipolar moment. They were in Central Asia. Iran was surrounded. So they were building underground bases with short-range missiles, medium-range missiles, which are much more maneuverable and easy to move around, short-range, medium-range drones, to destroy assets across the Persian Gulf. Their navy, their underwater drones. They've been preparing themselves for war with the United States. War with the Israeli regime has always been a sideshow. So these long-range missiles that hit the Israelis are a small part of the Iranian arsenal. And Iran has more missiles than it had back then. And it didn't use by far. I mean, it only used a small proportion of its missiles. And a few launchers were destroyed. But there's footage of Iranian underground bases where you see launcher after launcher after launcher after launcher. It's, that's wishful thinking on their behalf, just like everything about Iran. Ali, ever since I was a teenager, Iran is on the verge of collapse. 16 years ago, what's his name? I just forgot his name. The CNN pundit, Farid Zakaria, told me that you are a mouthpiece for a dying regime. It's been 16 years. And this dying regime won't die.
What'll it be?
And I don't expect it to die during my lifetime, but I think the U.S. empire is going to die probably in a much short.
If I were to guess, I think that the only way the Iranian regime, I'm not a fan of Iran. I'm a fan of Iran. Let's just put it that way. But I guess I don't particularly like the regime of the Ayatollahs, even though Khamenei has been quite a lot more rational than the previous Khomeini. Also, they've allowed way too many kind of Western brain liberals into their parliament. I will say that overall, I'd much rather it was a more moderate regime than it is. And I think the only way that's gonna happen is through reform. I think Iranians in Iran are quite cognizant of the fact that the West wants nothing more than to balkanize the entire country into several states with perpetual civil war. I think that the West, that's the ultimate goal of the West. They would love that, and most Iranians recognize that, and certainly the establishment, like the deep Iranian state, realizes that.
Shorter period of time than the likes of Farid Zakari.
At least I hope so, fervently.
The problem with the United States is that they like to underestimate Iran because of their own supremacist worldview. And I'm talking about the elites, this American exceptionalism. I'm not talking about ordinary Americans, because we've discussed this numerous times before in the show.
Do this.
You have, younger generation. I mean, I don't have any opinion about the mayor of New York, but young Jews in the United States, the majority of them, as far as I understand, voted for him. And young people across the United States, their views on Israel are clear. So I'm not talking about, when I say
game has changed a lot.
I'm talking about the political regime. I'm not talking about ordinary people. So no one should be offended.
Although I last played it on a PS4.
The regime in Washington is supremacist, like Israel. It sees itself as, I think Madeleine Albright once said, we see far further and than others, or something like that. Like we are different.
You probably run into some trouble along the way.
We are exceptional. And because of that, they're always looking down at others. And of course, at the worst of the worst is always Iran. But if they go forward with that sort of calculation, they're going to be hurt. They thought in the 12-day war that Iran would collapse, that Iran would fall. Remember when Trump tweeted total surrender, or absolute surrender, or something like that? Well, what happened?
Unconditional surrender, yeah.
Unconditional surrender, exactly. Well, what happened? Ultimately, it was Netanyahu who sought a ceasefire. It was Iran. Iran was not communicating with anyone asking for a ceasefire. It was willing to go on. In fact, and this is not a secret, but it is not widely known because it's not talked about abroad, but Iran
who's mailing anybody anything
fire a huge volley
in this situation
of missiles towards the Israeli regime, because the Israelis they'd almost finished their air defenses. And
where's my mailbox?
If the war had continued like 2 or 3 extra days, you would have seen a big and unprecedented strike on different targets in Israel with very older generation missiles. But in any case, the point is that the smart thing to do for the American people is to not buy this nonsense. Iran is anyone can go and look at the live stream of Monday. The state has popular support, and no one welcomes invasion or attacks. And the Persian Gulf is a very sensitive place, and I don't think anyone. Trump just yesterday, I think, said he wants oil at $53 a barrel. Well, we'll see what happens if there's war. I think that oil can easily go up to $300 a barrel if it's all out war.
Dr. Morandi, if you can put the current events in a broader regional and global context, after the June war, the 12-day war, which killed more than 1,000 people in Iran, including many children, which, it was, as you were mentioning, a failed regime change effort. Is what we're seeing now a continuation of that war? But also, how does what is happening right now in Iran, how does that relate to the recent U.S. aggression against Venezuela? The efforts to pull another regime change operation there, the kidnapping of its president, of course, Nicolas Maduro, and First Lady Celia Flores. How does it relate to Iran's support for the Palestinian liberation struggle, particularly the resistance in Gaza?
Do you think that Morandi could be labeled as a propagandist for the Iranian system? I mean, he certainly...
antagonism towards Iran is about Palestine.
Also, hello, Grand Designs Enjoyer. Nice to see you. Do I think that he can be labeled as a propagandist for the rating system? Yes. But I don't think that, like, the word propaganda is kind of widely misinterpreted by most lay people as being kind of an intrinsically bad thing. I mean, it might be. Propaganda is not necessarily untrue. So originally, when people were talking about propaganda, they were when media was kind of starting to propagate in to common people, sort of in the form of film and radio, most people were anxious when they were talking about, the context of conflict. They were anxious to promote things that had happened to them, like bad things or good things, like over the airwaves. They would say, look, we've done all this, and it wouldn't necessarily be untrue. So, like, look, we did these good things, or look, we did these bad things. Look, they did these bad things. And it's not necessarily untrue. The point of it is to elevate the good things you've done and minimize the bad things you've done. Elevate the bad things the enemy has done and minimize the good things they may have done. So it's not actually untrue. And a number of people in, even today, who understand what propaganda kind of really means, have not been shy about admitting their status as propagandist. I would say the biggest one would be Hassan, who says often, relatively often, that he is a propagandist for the left. So I don't think that... I mean, Morandi may be a propagandist, and I think that he probably is, but I don't think that anything he says is essentially untrue. But he's accentuating the positive aspects of the Iranian regime while maybe glossing over or minimizing the negative aspects of it. So, I mean, if what you're saying, so if the question is whether or not Morandist is lying, which a lot of people might sort of be, that's the substitute for the word propagandist. If anybody's asking whether or not he's lying about what is happening in Iran, I don't think so. But I do think he would be accentuating facts that are in favor of his narrative. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, the way I choose to look at these things is that you look at the propagandist for one side, you look at the propagandist of the other, and if you have any kind of grasp of what happens in these regions, you use your own faculties to decide what might be a compromise, in your mind. Like, between the two, what do you think may be the most probable truth, essentially? So that's my roundabout answer to your question.
If Iran was like Turkey, I mean the government, if it was like Saudi Arabia, if it was like Emirates, or any of these countries, there would be no sanctions.
I mean, in many
all would be
ways,
well,
I think
and Iran
I'm a
wouldn't be
propagandist. In a lot of ways. I don't think there are many people who aren't propagandists in one way or another. The question is whether or not you're lying to your knowledge. And I try my best not to lie as far as I know. So
Due to fuel shortages, non-essential electric generators will be switched off during daylight hours.
You don't hear them say the Jordanian regime or the Egyptian regime or the Saudi regime or the Turkish regime. These are all.
And you notice that Syria has gone in the Western press from being a regime to a government now.
And they destroy
Yes,
whatever
of
they can
course,
steal for
because now
themselves. They've been an especially serious problem
democracy
for the theater
has
settlement.
been brought
Given
to
our
Syria
situation,
and
we need the help of the settlements. They can't do much if they're struggling to survive.
It's stunning,
So see
and
what
this
you can
this
do to take
shows
some
how
pressure off them.
easy.
But don't forget that we have to get the shape network back
Americans,
to full
and again, I'm not
strength.
saying all
In a lot of
Americans, how
places, the
easily they're
division has been the
manipulated.
only thing holding people together.
9/11.
DC is the priority.
I mean,
most agents are completely cut off.
they said the
They're
world
not going
will
to last long
change.
without support.
But a decade later, they were working with Al Qaeda, the same Al Qaeda, as they say, in Libya and then in Syria. And now they brought the head of Al Qaeda to power.
We have assholes here.
And Trump.
Let me shoot the
supports him,
assholes.
Meets him.
Or we chat again.
Sprays perfume on him. It's quite stunning. And you don't see mass protests in the United States because it's sort of like, I don't know.
God
it's like
bless
the American
America.
people, it's really okay. I'm not saying it's okay, but I think most Americans are, or at least a large segment of American society.
Do you know about the Iranian UFO? No, I don't know about that at all. Do you frequent unelectable airwaves, by the way? Because you probably know about that. I don't know anything about any UFO incidents. I'm not saying that... I don't... I watch unelectable airwaves with kind of a completely neutral point of view. Because this part, TV show with Fox Mulder and Scully. What the fuck was that called? I can't remember the name of the show. But like, I do want to believe. I want to believe. The X-Files, yes. I do want to believe, Grand Design Zero. Like, I more than anything want to believe. But I just have not been able to find any real evidence of it. But none of that has deterred me from wanting to believe. But if anything has happened with Iran and UFOs, I'd be interested to hear about it, yeah. Super well documented by military and air force of Iran. Wow. I didn't know about that at all. Actually, next time Unelectable Airwaves is online, I'm going to ask him about that.
They're so deeply propagandized that they just don't
Do you
know what's going
know
on. I'm pretty sure that
how much I fantasize about the idea of aliens coming to our planet and being like, wow, you stupid apes. Do you understand? I mean, either way. I mean, I tend to view this as a binary. Like, either way, they're like morons. Do you understand how easily we could solve all your problems? How easily these problems could be solved? You're like almost there, but you don't quite get it. Here it is. Or, which they haven't done yet, and it makes me think that this one's less likely. But if you're just gonna kill us all, then just do it really quickly. That just put us out of our misery. But since they haven't done it yet, and apparently they can be shot down really easily, it makes me think that not something they're interested in. It's not something that's really on their radar.
many Americans don't know where Venezuela is, or where Iran is, or where Syria is. So Maduro has killed millions of people, according to Trump, and he's a bad guy. But the head of Syria, Jolani, who was co-founder of ISIS and the leader of Al Qaeda in Syria,
what do you want me to do?
He's a good guy. That's how it works. And in this upside down world of Western morality, obviously Iran is going to be the bad guy. So Iranians recognize that they are paying the price for supporting the people of Palestine. But to the great, enormous credit of the Iranian people, they don't give... Even though Iranians, Ali, Nora, one of the interesting things is Iranians know that Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Turkey under Erdogan and these other oil and gas-rich regimes, they fund sectarianism through their mosques that they fund, through their cultural centers, through their media, and they have hundreds of channels, and it's not just Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya. These are like the big names, but they have all sorts. And Iranians also know that even among Palestinians, they've created through disinformation and misinformation and twisting reality, they've made some Palestinians dislike Iran and the Shia. And this Persian language empire, media empire, which I told you about, constantly reminds people that this Palestinian person, he said this about the Shia, about Iran, about Hezbollah. And despite that, the Iranians look beyond it. And they continue. And if you look at polls, the Iranians have overwhelming support for the Palestinians. It doesn't matter.
I think, and I think if I may, you talked about this Persian language media empire beaming all this propaganda into Iran, and I see it peripherally. I don't know Farsi. I would love to learn it, but you see it. I mean, even in my social media feed, I'm being bombarded with this propaganda as well. Mirroring that, there has been an Arabic language propaganda apparatus, huge one, working for decades, to propagandize Arabs against Iran and to teach them that Iran is their enemy, that the Shia are their enemy, that the Shia are heretics, even though historically this is, completely baseless. And I have to say, you do see that reflected among some
really
Arabs.
true.
I mean, I'm often shocked by the racism I hear from Arabs against Iranian people and the sectarianism I hear. But I have to say that, again, this is my perspective, just as you say that anti-Arab racism in Iran is quite marginal, I think that the anti-Iranian or anti-Persian or anti-Shia racism and sectarianism is also marginal among Arabs, and at least from my perspective, and I think that is...
I don't know about that.
Because there is this now much greater understanding of what is at stake in all this, in the sense that countries are...
Okay. It depends, like, the word marginal is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting there. I don't think... And I'm only speaking from my own experience. This is from my family in Egypt. Egyptians don't have a particular view of Iranians. Like, I think the basic view of Iranians is that they're smart. They're inventive, and they're certainly steadfast. I think that's what most of my own Egyptian relatives would say, judging from past conversations. But that's Egypt, and Egyptians aren't really like North Africans aren't. I would think they aren't typical when it comes to the pan-Arab community. From what I've seen, I would think that actual, like, people, Arabs, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, those sorts of countries, the Gulf Arab states, probably a lot more suspicious from a geopolitical standpoint. I don't know what the Levantine people, I don't know what Lebanese of Iranians. I don't know what Syrians really think of Iranians. I would imagine that some Yemenis, probably from a geopolitical context, that is where Ansar Allah is in control, probably more favorable to Iranians. The logical guess. I don't think that there is one view across what the West knows as the Arab world of Iranians. I think it's varied, and I don't think this is a question that's really easily answered.
Targeted because of their stance vis-a-vis the Palestinian struggle and Israel. And it's also not a coincidence, I think, that Venezuela.
By the way, it's also important to note that a lot of his opinions will be given through the prism of the Israel question. So the fact that Iran stands up to Israel will be seen as a positive amongst a wide variety of people outside of the pan-Arab, outside of the Gulf Arab world.
Aside from all the other reasons why the United States is hostile to Venezuela, the United States has never allowed any country in the Western Hemisphere to exercise sovereignty and independence. But aside from that, I think it's not a coincidence that Venezuela has taken a very strong stance in solidarity with Palestinians, and that Hugo Chavez, the late president and the founder of this revolutionary movement that rules Venezuela now. Yeah. And so it comes down, is it that it just comes down to geopolitics, and people's eyes are being opened to that? From my perspective, and maybe that's a slightly optimistic note to kind of draw a discussion to a close, but do you think that there are reasons for optimism now as we're speaking? Dr. Morandi, are we on the eve of a devastating war, or do you see signs of glimmers of hope or optimism? And how can we encourage the strands of hope and optimism from our limited means and perspectives?
Well, there's a very good chance that there will be war, and Iran is preparing for a major war, but and that would be catastrophic for the world. But at the same time, that doesn't make me pessimistic in the broader sense, because you're absolutely correct. Despite this massive media network in the West, this Persian anti-Iranian media network that's anti-Islamic Republic of Iran, but also anti-Arab, and this well-funded media network through oil and gas money and NATO countries that tell Arabs that this divide and rule is sort of beginning to melt away, because people are seeing through the propaganda, and the Western Empire is on the decline. And the same is true in Venezuela. One of the really fascinating things, Annie, is that I've been to Venezuela, I think 4 times, and each time, because it's so far away, I spent a few days, because going back and forth is not easy. Venezuelans are very friendly to Iranians, and the relationship is excellent. So the issue is not religion. The issue is not sect. The issue is not race. It is the empire versus the rest of the world. The rest of the world wants to live in peace, and they want growth, and they want sovereignty, and they want dignity. And they have excellent relations with each other. Or they want to have excellent relations with each other. And it is the West that wants to keep everyone divided. So of course, they are the ones who benefit from sectarianism. And their tools in the region fund that sectarianism and promote that sectarianism, because they're in the American camp. But it's not working like it did before. If, God forbid, there's a war between Iran and the United States, it will be devastating. But it will be the end, or at least it will bring down the empire much faster than before. It will cause great harm, but the Iranians will not lose this war. Without a doubt, it will be U.S. government. And when that happens, I think a lot of people will be seeking Donald Trump and all those people who advocated this war and saying, you've ruined the economy, you've ruined our lives. But all that aside, the good news is that just like in the United States and the West, young people are waking up. Across the world, people are waking up. They see the ugliness of the American empire. And that's one of the, how can I put it? That's one of the things about Trump that's actually helpful, because he says the quiet part out loud. Biden he started the genocide with Netanyahu.
If you're looking for Agent
Obama
Kelso,
was
she just
constantly using drones to murder people across the world. He destroyed Libya.
I should have gone with her.
He started the dirty war in Syria. He
But I
gave
only
Saudi
slowed her
Arabia
down.
and the Emirates
I
the
don't
green
care.
light to destroy Yemen and to carry out a genocidal war. All the previous presidents were more or less the same. This is an empire. But Trump is so crude, and simultaneously the United States is on the decline, that it's becoming apparent and clear for everyone, or at least most people, what's going.
That's what I like that's what I appreciate about Donald Trump. That Donald Trump is the most American president that there ever was. I've always said this. I said this the first time he was president, and I'm gonna say it now. He is the greatest, most honest incarnation of what it is to be the United States of America. And I very much appreciate that, if nothing else.
On. Whether inside the United States, whether across the West, or beyond the West. People across Latin America, when they hear Trump say, the oil is mine, does anyone think that people even in right-wing...
I mean, make no mistake. It didn't take long for the United States after its independence. Immediately, I mean, at first they had all sorts of grand ideas about being sort of an agricultural country that, was just, everybody tilling the land. And it was a very, a lot of people and all those founding fathers had those ideas. But it didn't take long after that. I think they had about, 30 years? I might be completely off base with that. For about something like 30 years, they were like, let's not have an army at all, because having a military provides a sort of an impetus towards empire. So let's not have a military, let's have militia. Everybody should be armed, but we'll have no state army and all this stuff. And it sounds really good, at least if you elide the part where they were slave owners. So leaving that aside, it sounded really good, right? But it didn't take fucking long for them to actually, let's have an army, let's expand westwards, let's create central banks. We should teach Canada a lesson, those Brits again. Let's expand southwards and westwards. Let's take a whole let's make a deal with the Republic of Texas that we can take about half of Mexico. Let's take all of the continental United States that we can, that's outside of Canada, expand to the furthest reaches possible, the north and the south, so we have the entire continent. Oh, let's go to war with Spain, actually. Let's take possession of the Philippines. Let's take possession of Cuba. It was very fast, this change, this national outlook between let's be a peaceful agrarian state and let's actually fuck everybody up. like it didn't take long at all. It was essentially an empire from its outset. In fact, I think they used those words, like an empire of democracy or something like that, an empire of freedom. I can't remember who said that. Yeah.
Countries like Argentina appreciate that they like that, or they feel threatened by it, or they feel insulted by it. What Trump is doing, the language that he uses, the behavior that he has, the policies that he pursues, Greenland and the trade wars and the continuation of the CIA support for the proxy war in Ukraine, none of this is all of this is hurting the United States, and it's clear to everyone what's happening. The hypocrisy is gone. Obama, in that respect, was the best of them all, and Clinton in his youth too. They were able to pretend that they cared about democracy, even as they were destroying country after country, and people believed them, or some people, many did. But now, people are awake, and so that gives me a lot of hope for the future. Young people, when I see young Americans against the Israeli regime. I could never have imagined this 3-4 years ago in my lifetime. And when I see so many young people, on the streets, and that's what the ceasefire was about, by the way, the fake ceasefire, because they're killing people every day. I mean, that's your expertise, of course, you and Nora and your colleagues, your top, website on all this. So I don't, or the channel on all this. So I don't want to go too much into this. But the fake ceasefire, in my opinion, was basically about
We're back.
Preventing global public opinion from exploding, because it turned against Israel and the regime, and we saw people in Australia of all places, and Italy, and across Europe, and everywhere protesting in huge numbers. So they needed a respite. But the world has changed, and I'm optimistic. I think there's a good chance of war. I don't know if it'll be a major war or a minor attack or no attack. I don't know, because Trump is not mentally stable and he's easily persuaded. But the Iranians have prepared themselves for the worst.
Well, Dr. Marandi, let's end this discussion on that hopeful note, knowing that anything can happen at any moment. We never know what we're going to wake up to. By the time people are watching this interview, since we pre-recorded it, who knows what the world will look like. But no matter what, we always learn so much from your insight, and we wish you and everyone in Iran peace, tranquility, safety, and justice. And truly, we wish that for everyone on this planet. Dr. Marandi, thank you for your precious time, and we hope always to have the opportunity to listen to you and learn from you.
Device detected.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Nora, and I thank your team for all the fantastic work that you do. You were supporting the Palestinian cause when the numbers were few and awareness was very limited, and you've helped create this environment where young people could learn about the truth and reality, and hopefully gradually they'll learn more about Iran and Hezbollah and Ansarallah, and recognize that these entities,
bring me exactly
their struggle is to support the oppressed, and the Palestinian people are the most oppressed people in the world today, and they will continue to do so because they have a responsibility and they feel responsible for it.
I don't care about any
and
of you
I think
people.
hopefully in the future more Americans will become more aware about this reality and recognize that the narratives produced by mainstream media on Iran are just as ridiculous as the narratives on Palestine.
People are all
And in
very
fact,
under-equipped,
the narratives on Iran
by the way.
are hostile because Iran supports Palestine.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marandi.
Clarity. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Did I shoot at these?
I'm gonna get you!
Okay. That about does it for me. I gotta have dinner and complete some of my English teaching course. How many people are in here? Oh, nobody. That helps me out a lot. Means I don't have to raid. So anybody who's in here or listening, thank you for joining me for the night. Grand Desires Enjoyer, Miley Magic. Probably stream again on Thursday.
This gun is heavy.
Good night and good luck.